There was a headless dinosaur in the courtyard underneath my balcony. A giant chicken with a red rubbery comb that bobbed with the chicken suit occupant's movements was doing up the straps over the dinosaur's shoulders, while the dinosaur's head lay on a chair that stood outside the entrance to the storage container that evidently held all the performers' props. A monocycle leaned against the wall which separated the hotel's courtyard from the courtyard of the next hotel. Instead of working on my urgent and very boring messages, I was looking down in fascination, wondering how someone wearing a dinosaur suit with a giant head and awkward tail was going to ride a monocycle. Welcome to the New World Entertainment Precinct, and welcome to Los Angeles. Strains of cheery music drifted between the buildings, where, if yesterday was anything to go by, a show was taking place in the square outside our hotel. The dinosaur head went on, the tiny Tyrannosaurus paws adjusted the visor, the chicken grabbed the monocycle, jumped on, and then the dinosaur ran after it through the alley along the side of the hotel with a speed that would make me freak out. A cheer went up when they arrived a few seconds later in the square at the front of the building, and I could no longer see them. Sigh. Back to my messages, and attempting to be polite to a man who, frankly, had not deserved my politeness. Although I had no illusion that if I let it fly and wrote, "Why the fuck won't you respond to my correspondence?" it would have any more effect than my previous messages to Nations of Earth President Simon Decker had. All 9 of them, since we'd prepared for this trip. I'd started off asking for a meeting when we were still in Barresh, saying that we were coming through the exchange and I could drop into Rotterdam for an informal chat to tell him that there were a few things I'd like to touch base on, just like I'd do with his predecessor. And he had continued to ignore me. And now we were out of range, in the northwestern corner of Mexico, to honor my promise to a Coldy family. It was a long story. We were also about to go even further out of range, if I was successful at procuring a trip further inland, which might or might not breach a raft of international laws. I didn't want Decker to find out I was here, and that we were doing this, but I did want to talk to him once we came back to Rotterdam. But either way, he continued to ignore my messages. The performers of the previous act now filed into the area around the storage container, cordoned off from people on the ground by screens, but visible for me 3 floors up. They peeled off colourful jackets and tossed hats aside. Someone passed around a tray with cups of water. A mother and a small child had come to the pool on the other side of the barrier. It was early March, and I didn't think it was that warm, but I guess they thought differently. The mother spread out a towel on one of the deck chairs that stood on the fake grass. Damn, I was really not getting any work done. I picked up my reader and went inside. As earthly as the courtyard outside of my balcony had been, the inside was all off-worldly. Thayu and Shadu had moved the table in front of the window, and they had set up as much security equipment as they could fit on it. Shadu was on her knees under the table, trying to connect leads to a power box that led from a very old-fashioned power point. I hadn't seen any of those in many years. After arriving yesterday, she had complained bitterly that the level of power was not up to what she needed to operate her scanners, chargers, and transmitters, and she had borrowed or purchased or otherwise acquisitioned a box to make this happen. "Is it working now?" I asked Thayu, who stood watching the goings-on. She shrugged. "This is only the first step. Connectivity is poor, and there is next to no exchange coverage." Yes, I knew that, and we'd known that coming into this area. Somehow, I'd not expected that to be such a major issue,